So, in my few months of getting into politics since the rise of anti-immigration in the UK, I've had to do a lot of research, and basically this comes in the form of listening to politicians, listen to what they're advocating, and oftentimes, I guess people wonder, like, why? Why get into it to begin with? Especially when it's so boring and frustrating. And there is an answer for that. And I think everyone needs to hear it, including children. I want to start with a quote that I literally just made up. And I think this is one of the most important quotes of existence, literally. I said, "You may not like politics, but politics doesn't like you." And it's just so fucking true. Didn't mean to rhyme. There we go. Yeah, I didn't want to get into politics. Literally, like, even a few months ago, even when I discovered I was pansexual, when I discovered that my benefits could be completely removed by the current governments. And that came out of a desire to be able to live a comfortable and happy life, but because of how politics works, it's something that I need to pay attention to get the upper hand, essentially, and make sure I'm not making the wrong choices, especially when it comes to voting, or if it comes to something like a current scenario, like even what you see in the US at the moment, which no doubt has so many fucking problems in itself. That's why you need to be so careful with this, and why it is such a worry for people. This is why certain people can go from being somewhat apolitical, like I used to be, to being really politically minded. Because the world has forced your hand, the political situations have forced your hand. Suddenly you have to defend yourself, you have to fight back. And this is the very danger with politics. And I sort of warned about this years ago, if I'm not mistaken, but I think that's long gone since it used to be on a website that I don't support anymore. Still, it feels like it feels very ignorant when people say you shouldn't make it political, you shouldn't make it about politics. And the very fucking reality of it is politics is what gets you here to begin with. You know, even to an extent, it's like how we even got the internet to begin with. Because it has to be regulated, obviously, and then you have to get involved in some communications with, I don't know, councils or counties, or whoever you have. There's all this sort of official stuff that is so governmentalised. I don't know if that's even a word. There's a new one, I guess. If you want it for the dictionary, feel free. Yeah, everything's been so. It's got their grubby hands on it, basically, the governments. And that's causing a fair amount of issues, and sorry for clicking and making artwork, and Tableau isn't doing it. I think, no. There's no fucking processing for this, it's weird. Yeah, and I'm making this a standalone because there's a video rather than there's nothing to watch really, but something to listen to. Because I think it's really important. The world is struggling, and we can't be sitting back and saying, let's not get into politics because that'll just tear us apart. You're going to be more torn apart if you don't fucking listen. That's the problem. This isn't like some scaremongering. This is reality. This is what's happening in America right now. This is what's happening between Russia and Ukraine, no doubt, to an extent there. It's even what's happening between Palestine and Gaza. But Palestine's not Gaza, no. Fuck. I got them mixed up. Israel and Gaza. Yeah, there's so many issues, and even the recent South Sudan cases that you've seen. These are all pretty much linked. When politicians are supplying these places with the power, they misuse the power, and nobody steps in. That is stupidly dangerous. Unbelievably so. Because that could be you next. And that's why you need to care. You need to get people in who are competent, for starters, and then you need to make sure that you're making agreements with the right countries so that this doesn't happen. And that's why it's so important. And on top of that, obviously, we've got our own rights. And that's why a gaming channel like myself would even bring up the topic of politics, especially even in a gaming sense. It's very simple. You can't live in a world and have your cake and eat it when politics serves to essentially dismantle that. To basically step on the cake and say you can't eat it. So just crush it right in front of you. And you're starving. That's what happens when you don't pay attention to politics, unfortunately. I don't really know what to say, because it's like what happens if, for example, because the US is using AI to generate stuff, and AI is just terrible in general. Everything AI is just bad, and it's like if Trump suddenly made this AI video discrediting games, and the games that are discredited are things like GTA and maybe even Pokemon, which is contradictory given that terrible Ice video they made. But they can literally discredit games that way, and suddenly there's a new law, like the next day, where Trump is basically saying that you can't play games anymore because it's causing too much violence. Like, how fucking absurd is that? It's literally bigotry. And this could very well happen. It's already happening with payment processes, as we've seen. But it can happen with politicians, for sure. It's not impossible at that point. I think it's very important to acknowledge that, because we could be leading ourselves down this route of a very dangerous sort of path for the world. And other politicians can take notes. They can certainly follow in the footsteps. As I said before, with something like Israel versus Gaza, literally Israel set the example for other countries to do the same, hence South Sudan probably. And I say probably because it's not confirmed, but it very much could be the case that they're influenced, because nobody stepped in, nobody changed that scenario, and it's still ongoing. People are still suffering because of Israel's actions, and supplying Israel for that matter. So that's why it's important. This cannot be ignored. That's why politics in itself cannot be ignored. And it really started to set in with the anti-immigration things, because I was thinking like, oh, flags are all out in the UK. Must mean football's going on site, because that's what you naturally think it is. It's just people supporting the UK, which is normal to do even if you're not patriotic. And then I looked up and it turns out it wasn't the football at all. It was actually, because they're also painting on the roundabouts as well, that's the other thing where I live. So I looked that up, I looked up why they're painting on roundabouts instead of just waving flags, and it turns out it's all basically linked back to racism. Literally this idea that foreigners are taking over the country, which is racism, because you are discriminating against someone for their ethnicity or origin. And yeah, that just gets out of hand. So nobody feels safe in this country, and that led me down this rabbit hole of getting into politics, because I realised that something was wrong here. Because I've not seen many foreigners. I've not heard of many. Even then, the ones I have are quite minor compared to everyone else. I have heard more foreigners in the places that you wouldn't expect them to be. Like doctors or even just working in food, like the food sector. Even then, it's not an issue inherently. It's just a problem with how they're treated. A lot of this comes back to the crime rates and people pretending that It's to do with how people were afraid of these foreigners basically just causing havoc in the country. When the reality is not actually them causing havoc, it's the politicians. Again, it comes back to politics. This is why I say you may not like politics, but politics doesn't like you. If you are someone foreign in a foreign country, really enough, it's sort of weird how that goes both ways, you're probably at risk because of politics, and you should never vote a party that disagrees with the existence of people. That's all it takes. And when a party starts to promote hatred and just disagree with the existence of some people for something they can't change, then they've already failed the argument. They've already lost. That's like my politics 101 essentially. That's how you know when one side is good and the other side is bad. And I sussed this out years ago. That's the crazy thing. It's all about causing, or basically just creating peace and creating hope for that matter. It's nothing to do with policies. It's just to do with how someone portrays their, basically what they want in the country and the world. How they view the world as well can be important. And again, that's why it's important, because even games are in danger to something like an out-of-touch politician, like for example the UK's Nigel Farage, probably Trump as well at some point, because no doubt we'll see that if he keeps going the way he's going. Just too many issues to count, and that's why it's important. It's why people need to pay attention. So again, hear this warning, so just go and think about it and do some research as well, because it's shocking the amount of injustice there is in this world and how much of it can come back and bite you, even when you think you're not touchable from this sort of thing. There very much is that danger. Anyway, I think I better move on. My throat's hurting. So hopefully people agree with this. If you also want to discuss it, feel free. I will say that the YouTube filter is a bit weird sometimes, because it only really deletes stuff that is promoting hatred, and I do respond to those anyway because I don't tolerate hatred. It's just a stupid thing to have. It's pretty pointless too, and especially with the topics that for some reason people are really sensitive to, more so than the ones they're calling sensitive. It tends to be easy to debunk and win, essentially, in those conversations, but anyway. So feel free to comment and see everyone another time.